In September 2013, Nokia sold its entire mobile phone business to Microsoft for $7 billion. 6 years earlier, the Finnish company had controlled 40% of the global handset market and seemed untouchable. What decision turned the world's largest phone maker into a distressed asset? To understand the collapse, you need to see Nokia at its strongest. In 2007, Nokia shipped 435 million phones, more than any other manufacturer in history. The company held a 40% global market share, generated 51 billion euros in revenue, and employed 112,000 people across dozens of countries. Nokia's dominance wasn't accidental. The company had mastered hardware manufacturing, built distribution networks in 160 countries, and created phones for every price point different, from $50 feature phones for emerging markets to premium devices for business users. Analysts called Nokia's supply chain the most efficient in consumer electronics. Nokia's phones ran on Symbian, an operating system the company had developed and refined for over a decade. By 2007, Symbian powered two-thirds of all smartphones sold worldwide. Nokia owned the platform, controlled the roadmap, and licensed it to partners. The strategy had worked for years. Then Steve Jobs walked onto a stage in San Francisco. The iPhone that Apple unveiled that day wasn't the first smartphone, but it redefined what a smartphone could be. A capacitive touchscreen, a full web browser, no physical keyboard. Nokia executives watched the announcement. Their internal assessment was mixed. According to later interviews, some Nokia engineers recognized the iPhone as a paradigm shift, but senior management saw limitations. No removable battery, no memory card slot, expensive data plans, and a single carrier partner in the US. The first iPhone couldn't record video or send picture messages. Nokia sold phones in price brackets Apple hadn't touched. The iPhone wasn't Nokia's only problem. In November 2007, Google announced the Open Handset Alliance and Android, a free open-source smartphone platform. HTC, Samsung, and Motorola signed on. Unlike Apple's closed system, Android would run on hardware from dozens of manufacturers. A two-front war was forming. Nokia tried to respond, but Symbian, built for an era of physical keyboards and small screens, struggled to adapt. The codebase was complex and slow to update. Touch interfaces felt clunky. App development was difficult compared to iOS. By 2010, Nokia's market share had dropped to 33% and the decline was accelerating. By early 2010, Nokia's board faced a strategic inflection point. The company had three realistic options: invest billions to rebuild Symbian from the ground up, adopt Android and become a hardware manufacturer like Samsung, or partner with a third platform that could compete with iOS and Android. The Android option had internal support, particularly among engineers. But Nokia's leadership worried about commodification. On Android, Nokia would compete mainly on hardware and price, exactly where Asian manufacturers had cost advantages. Samsung was already flooding the market with Android devices at multiple price points. Nokia would lose its software differentiation. Nokia initially bet on MeeGo, a Linux-based platform developed with Intel. The plan was to leapfrog iOS and Android with a more advanced system. But by late 2010, MeeGo was behind schedule, and Nokia's smartphone sales were collapsing. Fourth quarter results showed a 21% drop in smartphone revenue. The board needed a faster solution. In September 2010, Nokia appointed Stephen Elop as CEO, the first non-Fin to lead the company. Elop came from Microsoft, where he'd run the business division. His mandate was clear: fix Nokia's smartphone strategy before the company lost its market position entirely. He had months, not years. On February 11, 2011, Elop sent a memo to all Nokia employees. Titled "Burning Platform," the message was blunt. Nokia was standing on a burning oil platform, and the company had to jump into icy waters to survive. The memo acknowledged that Nokia had been too slow, too siloed, and was losing the smartphone war. Hours after the memo leaked publicly, Elop and Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer announced a strategic partnership. Nokia would adopt Windows Phone as its primary smartphone platform. Microsoft would provide marketing support, developer tools, and integration with its services. Nokia would get hundreds of millions in platform payments. It was a bet the company decision. Why did this decision look rational? First, Windows Phone was a genuine third ecosystem with Microsoft's resources behind it. Second, Nokia would be Microsoft's premier partner, not one Android manufacturer among many. Third, Microsoft's enterprise relationships could help Nokia regain business customers it had lost to BlackBerry and iPhone. Nokia's analysis also considered developers. The Windows Phone platform promised easier development than Symbian, integration with Microsoft's developer tools, and access to Xbox Live and Office. If Microsoft could attract app developers, Windows Phone might become the third ecosystem. Nokia would own that relationship. The immediate result was catastrophic. By publicly declaring Symbian obsolete before Windows Phone devices were ready, Nokia created an Osborne effect. Customers stopped buying Nokia smartphones. Carriers reduced shelf space. Fourth quarter 2011 smartphone sales dropped 31%. Nokia had 8 months until the first Windows Phone launched. 8 months of free fall. In November 2011, Nokia released the Lumia 800, its first Windows Phone. Reviews praised the hardware design and camera quality. The Windows Phone interface was clean and distinctive, but the app ecosystem was sparse. No Instagram, limited Google services, gaps in banking and local apps. Consumers noticed. The second-order consequence became clearer through 2012. App developers prioritized iOS first, Android second, and Windows Phone a distant third, if at all. Nokia couldn't overcome the chicken and egg problem. Users wanted apps, developers wanted users. Windows Phone's global market share peaked at 3.4% in late 2013. The third ecosystem never materialized. While Nokia struggled, Samsung executed a massive Android rollout. The Galaxy S3, released in May 2012, sold 50 million units in its first 6 months. Samsung spent billions on marketing, created phones for every price tier, and customized Android with its own interface. By 2013, Samsung held 32% of the global smartphone market, more than Nokia ever had. Investors lost confidence. Nokia's share price, which had peaked at €65 in 2000, fell below €2 by mid-2012. Credit rating agencies downgraded Nokia's debt. The company announced 10,000 layoffs in June 2012, then another 10,000 in September. Finnish pension funds, which held significant Nokia stakes, watched billions in value evaporate. Carriers who had once prioritized Nokia's devices shifted their retail focus to iPhone and Samsung. Verizon and AT&T allocated premium shelf space to devices that drove data plan revenue. Windows Phone devices were available but not prominently displayed. Nokia lost its distribution advantage, the very asset that had sustained its feature phone dominance. By any measure, the Windows Phone decision weakened Nokia fatally. The company's smartphone market share fell from 30% in 2010 to below 3% by 2013. Nokia burned through cash reserves trying to compete. The partnership with Microsoft, intended to save the company, instead made Nokia dependent on a platform that the market rejected. On September 3, 2013, Microsoft announced it would acquire Nokia's Devices and Services division for $7.2 billion. Stephen Elop would return to Microsoft. Nokia would retain its network infrastructure business, its mapping division, and its patent portfolio. But the mobile phone company that had defined an era was gone. The acquisition itself failed. In 2015, Microsoft wrote down $7.6 billion of the Nokia purchase, essentially admitting the entire deal was worthless. Microsoft laid off 18,000 former Nokia employees and exited the phone manufacturing business. Windows Phone was discontinued in 2017. Both companies lost the smartphone war. Nokia still exists as a company. The network infrastructure business, renamed Nokia Corporation, generates €23 billion annually providing telecom equipment and 5G technology. It's profitable and employs 90,000 people. But it's a fundamentally different company. The consumer brand that once meant mobile phones now means enterprise networking hardware. In 2016, a Finnish company called HMD Global licensed the Nokia brand and began releasing Android phones under the Nokia name. These devices have no operational connection to the original Nokia Corporation. They're manufactured by third parties and sold primarily in emerging markets. The brand lives on. The company that built it does not. The strategic lesson is specific and evidence-based. In a platform market, controlling the ecosystem matters more than manufacturing excellence. Nokia chose a partner platform that never achieved critical mass. Samsung chose an open platform and won on execution. Apple built its own platform and controlled the entire experience. Nokia bet on a third path that didn't exist. Platform markets have different physics than product markets. Network effects compound. Developer ecosystems create lock-in. Distribution advantages erode when the platform shifts. Nokia's leadership understood hardware and supply chains, but they underestimated how quickly platform dynamics could destroy a decade of operational excellence. That's what lost them the smartphone war. One decision, one platform bet, and a market leader became a cautionary tale.